Good afternoon. I'm Neil Bodette. We're here with Premier Collectibles, and Mike Eruzione is here to talk about his new book, and I should say our new book because I'm fortunate enough to be his co-author. But this new book is come out from HarperCollins. It's The Making of a Miracle. It's Mike's life story. And Mike, why don't you start us off by telling us what was the motivation for writing a book? Of course, you're the...
you approached me, it was a couple of years ago, I think.
Three.
Right? 3 years ago. And you talked to me about writing a book about the team, interested in the team 40 years later, where they're going, what they're doing. Most of my teammates didn't want to have anything to do with the book. And so when I heard that, you asked me about maybe I would want to write a book. And I thought about it and went, I don't know if I want to write a book. And then I thought a little longer about it, and you and I talked, and I thought, yeah, you know what, I did want to do it, and I wrote it for one reason, and one reason only, is I wanted my grandkids to know that Papa's life wasn't just 2 weeks in Lake Placid. Yeah. And I thought I wanted to tell the story of how I grew up, the family, the environment I grew up in, how I ended up at Boston University, how I ended up on the Olympic team. I mean, my life has taken a lot of kind of turns and twists, so to speak, over the years, and I just thought maybe it was good for me to do this. But like I said, one reason only is that, my grandkids and maybe their kids someday will know that their father, their grandfather, rather their great grandfather, didn't just play one hockey game or score one goal.
All right. Well, let's back up a little bit. So you were on the 1980 Olympic hockey team, Lake Placid. Back then, it was amateurs. The famous game is against the Soviet Union, but tell us what still stands out in your mind from your 2 weeks in Lake Placid.
I think a few things. I've always said marching in the opening ceremonies was an amazing experience, because if you never get there, none of the other things would have even happened. So to be able to march in the opening ceremonies in your own country, representing the United States, is an incredible honor. So I think about that often. Maybe that's kind of sometimes my number one highlight. Just like I said, if you never got to the Olympic Games, we wouldn't be doing anything that we're doing now. And I think I just remember the atmosphere in the locker room, every game, every win, celebration with my teammates, not only great players, great people. Mm-hmm. Fun to share that moment with them. Obviously, to beat the Soviets was an incredible experience, but winning the gold medal was the ultimate. We didn't go to Lake Placid to win one game, although people still think we only played one game. They forget about all the other games that we had to play. And standing in the podium, see your flag being risen just a little higher, and everybody in the building singing the Star Spangled Banner was, again, a moment that I'll remember forever and cherish.
Before we get on to signing and questions from viewers, let's just go over the basics. This is the 1980 Olympic team. Most of the players were American college hockey players. The Soviet Union, they are essentially professionals. This was a team that had more or less embarrassed the NHL about a year before that. You get to the Olympics, first games against Sweden.
Well, we that was the day before the opening ceremony, so there really weren't a lot of people in the building, mainly because nobody thought the hockey team was going to do anything. Plus, the Olympic Games really hadn't officially somewhat started because the ceremonies were the next day. And I think that was the big moment. People talk about my goal. They talk about Mark Johnson's many goals. But Billy Baker's goal was probably the biggest, or one of the biggest, of the Olympic Games.
Okay.
If Billy doesn't score with 28 seconds left to tie Sweden, and if we lose to Sweden, who knows what happens as the Olympics move forward. But that was an important point for us, because we had to finish first or second in our division. And if we fell behind to Sweden, now we get Czechoslovakia next. If we lose that game, now we're out. Now see you later, we're gone. So Billy's goal in the Swedish game was huge for us, because not only did we get a tie, we didn't play that well. And I think we as a team realized that, look, we tied a team that was considered better than us and supposed to beat us, and we didn't play that well. So imagine if we put everything together, which I think we did, 2 days later when we beat the Czechs 7-3.
So that was a pretty dramatic victory, or tie. It was against Sweden, first game, 2-1. Very late in the game, Herb Brooks, famous Miracle on Ice coach, pulls the goalie Jim Craig. You put an extra skater on the ice, and Billy Baker gets a slap shot from the slot.
He blasts one by and made it 2-2, and we get a tie out of the game. And the opening ceremonies are the next day, and you're excited just to be in the village and be at the opening ceremony. So everything started to move forward from there, and it just snowballed to the victory against the Czechs, then against Norway, then against Romania, then against West Germany.
And then comes
now we're in the medal round.
the medal round against the Soviet
Yeah,
Union.
yeah, and that was our goal. Our goal was, Herb's goal was to get us to the medal round. You get to the medal round, then anything can happen. And as it turned out, we finished second in our division because Sweden had a better goals for, goals against average. So they're number one, we're number two. So it's a crossover. Two plays one, and we played the Soviets the first night on a Friday night, and exciting opportunity to play, for the next day, which could be a gold medal game.
So it's in the third period. You go into the third period, you're down 3-2. And about 9 minutes into the period, that's when Mark Johnson steps up again. Take us through that goal.
Mark stepped up many times. Yeah, Mark, I think it was a power play goal or at the end of a power play. David Silk did a nice job of getting the puck to the net. The puck ricocheted off a defenseman right back to Mark. And as Mark did many times, we called him magic for a reason. And he was able to make a great play, great move, and he scores to make it 3-3. And, now we're, 10 minutes left to go or 11 minutes left to go in the game. And
well, it was 81 seconds later that you jumped on the ice.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
I don't know. I never looked at that.
It was right after that.
And so after Mark scored, I had an opportunity to give us the lead. And
take us through that goal.
Well, it's just a play that happens in the course of a hockey game. Pucks bounce every different way, and you don't have set plays, or very rarely do you have a set play in ice hockey. And the puck Mark Pavlich did a great job. John Harrington started the play, getting it to Pavlich, who was able to ricochet it, somewhat tip it over to me coming over the blue line. And I had the clear kind of path to the goal. I had the defenseman in front of me, and Billy Baker and John Harrington were going to the net on my left, and defenseman was in front of me. And, I saw him, and I thought if he comes at me, I'm going to try to make a play to either Ba or to Billy Baker. And if he stayed, I was going to use him as a screen. He stayed, I used him as a screen, and I had the whole far corner. And because I was going across my body, I kind of pulled it just a little, but thought I had enough of it. And then I saw the net go back, and then I saw the crowd behind the goal stand up, and I went, oh, I guess that went in, and kind of celebrated, and it gave us the lead.
Yeah.
And that's how I looked at it. It was, I just had a chance to help our team when I could, and again, throughout the game, players made great plays to keep the game the way it was. And, I was able to give us the lead with 10 minutes left to play. And then after that, we played really well for the last 10 minutes, especially the last 5 or 6 minutes. And, ended up winning 4-3.
Mm-hmm. And gave us, and Al Michaels, the great announcer, gave us the famous call in the final seconds of that game.
Do you believe in miracles? Yes. And I didn't hear it till weeks later because I didn't watch the game. I just heard highlights or saw highlights of it. But Al kind of created a great moment for our team, and obviously for him.
Yeah.
Although Al would have been discovered. Yeah. Al was a great commentator.
And he still is a great commentator.
Yes, and he's become a good friend of our team. We always consider him part of our team. So that was it was a great call and a great outcome. But we still had to play on Sunday, and a lot of people didn't know that if we lost or tied Sunday, we could have come in fourth place and not have won a medal. So as great as the Soviet game was, the Finland game became the biggest game of the Olympics for us. And to this day, people think we only played one game, but we played a big one on that Sunday morning.
All right. Well, let's get to some signing some books, and we'll take some questions from some viewers, and occasionally I'll throw in one myself. And while you're getting started there, maybe you could go back to that Finland game. We'll set the scene. This was February 24th, 1980. That Friday night on the 22nd, that's when the U.S. beat the Soviets 4-3. So now you're in the medal game against Finland. And tell us about what the mood of the team was and how the game went.
We were excited. Here you are playing for the ultimate prize in the Olympic Games, the gold medal. And I think we were ready to play. We were excited about the opportunity. And I thought played really well, especially in the first period. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this goaltender for Finland's going to have the game of his life. Here we go. As great as we played throughout the Olympics and as well as we were playing in that game, we couldn't seem to find the net. He had made some incredible saves early. And, we're trailing 2-1 going into the third period. Trailing was nothing new to us. We'd been trailing pretty much every game other than Romania. And I just think the confidence in the locker room. I remember Jack O'Callahan must have said it 100 times. There's no way a bunch of Finns are keeping us from a gold medal. And that atmosphere in the room was intense and exciting. And guys couldn't wait to go out and play. And that's when, again, I remember it this way. Was Herb came in and he said, if you lose this game, you'll take it to your grave. Then he walked
with
out.
With an expletive before grave.
Then he walked out and he stopped and he pointed his finger and he said, your grave, and walked out. And the point was right. We had come so far, we had worked so hard to accomplish so much, to let it slip away and not win that game would have stayed with us forever.
Yeah, sure.
And then we went out and played, I think, the best 20 minutes of hockey we played throughout the Olympics, and ended up scoring 3 and won 4-2 and
3 goals.
And won the whole thing. And the third period was our MO. I mean, we had great speed, we had great skill, and our conditioning was incredible. And I don't have the exact numbers, but the scoring that we had in the third period of every game was off the charts.
I think it was 16-3.
Yeah, 16-3 in goals in the third period, and I think the final 10 minutes of the games was like 6-0 or some bizarre number like that. So, we were a pretty good hockey team, and when we had to play, especially at the third periods, when especially in the Soviet game, the Soviets were known for wearing teams down. I thought we wore them down, and I thought we wore other teams down. And that's, hence why we were able to win the whole thing.
I'll go to a question. Scott from Gainesville, Florida, and I love this question. It's a really insightful question. Which player on the 1980 team do you believe does not get enough credit for their contribution to the gold medal? And there's probably more than one.
Yeah, there is more than one. That's a great question. I think our fourth line, and I hate to call them the fourth line because they're going to be mad at me, but that was the fourth line. Mark Wells, Eric Strobel, and Phil Ricotta. I mean, we played 4 lines. Some teams, they shorten their bench. We never did. And our fourth line was as valuable as, somewhat of our first line, because they went out there and they gave us some great minutes and made some plays and scored some goals, some big goals. Phil Ricotta.
I think Phil scored the tying goal in the Finland gold medal game. Yeah.
So I think they were probably unsung. But I think you look at a guy like Bob Suter, who didn't play a ton, come off a bad ankle injury, but yet he was so important to our team in the locker room, on the bench, accepting his role, understanding, look, I might not play a ton, but when I get out there, I'm a great teammate. Steve Janicek never played 1 minute. He was the backup goaltender.
In fact, he was the only player on all the teams in the 1980 Olympics who never got a minute of play.
Yeah, and Steve accepted his role, understood his role, probably was not happy, but never showed that. Was a great teammate for us throughout the Olympic Games, because you're playing a game on, let's just say, Friday. Now you got practice on Saturday, and Jimmy played Friday night, so you need somebody to shoot at that's going to challenge you. And Janny accepted every challenge in practice and challenged us to make us sharp and keep us aware. So I would say that would be, those would be 2 players and 1 line that didn't get the recognition that they should have gotten.
All right. We've got one, Tom, Bethany Beach, Delaware. Which teammates do you stay most in touch with?
Probably Jack O'Callahan. Jack was not only a teammate of mine at Boston University, but Jack was living in Chicago, recently moved to Florida. I talked to Jack quite a bit. We play a lot of golf together. For me, it's easy to see Jack because he's in cities that I'm at. The Minnesota guys all live in Minnesota. I don't get out that Minnesota that often, so the Minnesota guys tend to see each other all the time. But I would say probably Jack is the one that I talk to the most.
John, Binghamton, New York. This is an interesting question because I know it's something we've talked about. Who was the hockey player you idolized growing up?
Stan Mikita. And that's funny because, I'm from Boston, but I don't know what drew me to Stan Mikita. I think I read an article about him. I don't know if I ever really saw him play till later when we had a television at home and the Bruins were beyond, I think it was SBK TV. So for whatever reason, Stan was the guy that I kind of just admired.
So Stan Mikita, Chicago Blackhawks,
and I
great in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, I wore number 21 because of Stan Mikita, and I wore that in hockey and wore it in baseball.
But let's go a little bit deeper on that. You've told me that, while you did have, there were pro athletes that you looked up to, the people you looked up to most were who?
My parents. the athlete. You didn't know anything about athletes. Like I said, I didn't have a television until I was 12, so there were no sporting events on. Not like today, where you could follow these athletes. I knew who the Bruins were. I knew who the Celtics were, the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Boston Patriots then, and you'd read about it in a newspaper, but never really got to see them and watch them play. So the people that you respected and admired were your parents, teachers in school, coaches that I had. Everybody knew, who the firemen were, who the policemen were in town, and those were people that you respected and admired because of their position in the community.
While you're doing some signing, I'm just going to do a little bit of background on Mike's family. Mike grew up in a large Italian family in a triple-decker house in Winthrop, Mass. His family lived in the middle floor with 4 sisters and a brother, and Mike and his mother and father in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Well, my parents they had a bedroom, so make it 3.
3-bedroom apartment. And upstairs was an aunt, uncle, set of cousins, aunt and uncle, set of cousins downstairs. The children could go, there were 14 kids, 6 adults. Children could go anywhere they wanted in the house. If you didn't like what your mother was cooking for dinner, you could just go downstairs and pull up a chair. And what did you call this house, this atmosphere that you grew up in?
What in the book, is it 3 floors and no doors?
3 floors, no doors, yeah.
Once you walked in the house, you could go wherever you wanted to go. Unlike today, where doors are locked and double locked, there was no locks on doors, even the door to get in the house. The only door that was really locked was my Aunt Ann, because she was the first floor, right when you walked in. Other than that, you get in the house, you were free to go where you wanted to go. But there were no locks. There was just a lot of people running around. And, nobody was breaking into that house, I can tell you that right now.
All right, let's take another question from a viewer, Michael, Enfield, Connecticut. Initially, was there a rivalry between the Boston and Minnesota players trying out?
I don't know if there probably was a little of the rivalry trying out, but yet they kind of separated some of the guys. Like I think Team Minnesota and Team Massachusetts had a real battle. But being from Massachusetts, they put me on the Great Lakes team for whatever reason, I don't know.
Well, that's because you played your minor league hockey.
Well, I played in Toledo, but still there were other guys from Massachusetts on the Great Lakes team. So I guess the competition at the festival was intense. Guys trying to make the Olympic team or trying to get selected. But the rivalry really for the East and West, was when I was at Boston University and the fight we had with the University of Minnesota. And then Wisconsin and Minnesota were intense rivalries. Bob Johnson, Mark's father, the coach of Wisconsin, and Herb Brooks, the coach of Minnesota, did not get along very well. And they battled for years.
And that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, and they battled for years. So there was some animosity, but never once was there an issue once the team was picked.
Here's another question. Did you ever think one hockey goal would mean so much in U.S. history?
No, obviously, because there were a lot of goals. Like I said, Billy Baker's goal, Mark Johnson's goals throughout the Olympics. Mine happened to be the game winner, so maybe that separated it. Because, in
maybe
hockey,
people focus on it. But
yeah, that's right. On hockey history, they think of scoring the winning goal against the Soviets. But if Baker doesn't score, who knows what happens? If Mark doesn't do the things that he did, who knows what happens? So, yeah, it's nice to have it kind of that way. I've never looked at it that way. I've never said I scored the biggest goal in USA hockey history because I know what my teammates did and the goals that were scored during the Olympic Games that led to us being where we were. So. It's nice to continue, to call it that, and maybe to some degree it might be, but I've never looked at it that way.
Well, I love what you say about that about your goal. I know when we talked in the course of making the book, I know at one point you said that, people talk about your goal a lot, but it wasn't even the most important goal in that game, and maybe not even the second most important goal, because there was the one where end of the first period, Soviets are up 2-1. Dave Christian dumps the puck in or fires the puck in from the red line, hits the Soviet goalie in the pads, and Mark Johnson zips in and puts it in with 1 second left on the clock. And the difference there, you could be going into the locker room behind 2-1. Instead, you're going into the locker room 2-2. What do you remember about that goal?
I just remember being on the ice. And Davy Christian had it, and he shot it in at the Soviet goalie. And I look up at the clock, and I saw like maybe 5 seconds. So I start skating to the bench, and all of a sudden I see Mark Johnson fly by me, and I'm going, where's he going? Period's about over. And
What's
then
he doing?
bang, bang, goal. I'm like, now I know where he was going. And that was Mark. That's how good he was. He never quit. The engine was always going. And where I was against the board, so I knew I had no chance in the play that whatever was happening because I was going this way and Mark was going this way. So again, a huge goal, a huge play that happened during the game. And if Mark doesn't score, if Buzzy doesn't score, and what does my goal mean? We could have made it 3-1. If we don't get the other goals. But again, when teams win championships and gold medals and tournaments, everybody contributes. And obviously, I had my opportunity to help, and that's how I've always looked at it.
Well, it certainly was a great play by Mark, and there's a huge difference psychologically going in tied 2-2. Especially because 13 days before you had played the Soviets in Madison Square Garden in an exhibition game, and what was the result of that?
Well, we lost 10-3, but the key word there was exhibition game. It was the last game of a long, grinding 6 months, and I think we were nowhere near the same team the second time that we played them than the first time. First time we stood around and watched, and I think it was 6-0 after one, and then kind of played with them a little better in the second and third. But that was something that was played before the Olympics, something that was never ever talked about at all. Again, it was never brought up during the Olympic Games. It was never brought up before the Soviet game when we played them in the Olympics. It was if the game never happened.
Mm-hmm. Another question from a viewer, Andrea, Cave Creek, Arizona. What would you have done if you didn't play hockey?
I probably would have played baseball. I mean, growing up, that was my sport. Hockey was something I just did in the wintertime. Football in high school was my passion. I loved high school football. I loved playing football. But I probably played more baseball than anything. I probably would have been a pretty good baseball player, and don't know what would have happened if I pursued baseball, but I loved playing baseball.
Mm-hmm. I've got another interesting question here. Sam, Erie, Colorado. And I love this question because you've made a career out of being a motivational speaker, and you talk about the lessons of the 1980 Olympic team and how they can be applied to businesses, organizations, youth teams. And the question is, what did you do to stay positive when things were challenging?
Always be positive. Don't think negative. If you think negative things, guess what? Nothing but negative thoughts will stay in your head. So I've always found a way to just find something, as small as it might be, and build off of the positive. I remember, Herb, stressed that to us after we lost to the Soviets in Madison Square Garden. Was, the game's over, move on, take something from this game, something good, find something good, and build off of that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how I've kind of always approached my life in general. Not being recruited, not being somebody that colleges wanted. I still was positive about myself and my ability and my talent, and I just thought through hard work and determination that good things would happen. Mm-hmm. They may not happen right away, but eventually, if you work hard, good things are going to happen, and that's kind of how I've always followed things, even when things don't go well. And there are times when things don't go well. Nobody lives a perfect life. There's always challenges in your life. So I think what you do is when you face that challenge, you just got to go out and work harder to overcome it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I approach it.
I just want to remind our viewers, premiercollectibles.com//miracle, signed copies of The Making of a Miracle by Mike Eruzione, and I don't mind saying with Neil E. Beaudet, because that's me. We worked on the book together. I think it's a terrific read. I think people will really enjoy it. But premiercollectibles.com/miracle, signed copies available there. Another question, Brian, Moreland Hills, Ohio. What's one of the things you would tell a 12-year-old hockey player as he progresses?
I hate to sound like your father and mother, but I would say to have fun. And again, work hard. Work on the things that you think you need to do to get better. I've always felt as a hockey player, the better skater, the easier the game becomes because you can skate, you can play with some speed, which the game is so important today. If you can't skate today, it's hard to play that game. So I would say to continue to work on your skating. I would say to have fun, enjoy what you're doing, and I also would say to play other sports. Too many kids play that one thing and they get focused. I know I was a good hockey player because I played football and baseball. And I think it's important, and that's the problem today. Sometimes kids today, they get, parents just, at 6 years old or 7 years old, they're just playing one thing. If you're 15 or 16 and you've now developed into a pretty good athlete in whatever sport you play, I can see funneling into that sport at that point. But when you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, get out there and do different things. Play different sports. Experience different things. Because sometimes you need a break. You can't play hockey 24 hours a day, 12 months a year.
But you also develop different sets of muscles, different types of coordination that cross over and enable you to become a better hockey player. And like you said, I think there's a lot of translation, hand-eye coordination between baseball and hockey. There are a lot of hockey players who are really good baseball players and vice versa.
And lacrosse. Lacrosse wasn't around when I was a kid, so maybe I would have played lacrosse and not baseball. I don't think so. But I know my kids would have, my two boys probably would have been lacrosse players if it was available.
Well, here's a question I know I never asked you. Kenny, St. George, Utah. Define success and happiness.
Wow, that's a deep question. Success and happiness. I guess, I don't know, happiness is just enjoying what you're doing. Having good friends, having good family, having great relationships with people. Happy what you do, enjoying your job, enjoying the people that you associate yourself with. I guess success is if what you're doing is you're successful at it. It's probably a pretty simple answer. If you're successful, then you're happy with what you're doing. So find something that you enjoy, find something that you love to do, and work at that. And if you find what you love and have a passion for it, you're probably going to be successful. And if you're successful, then you're probably going to be happy.
Cameron, Bloomingdale, New York. Funniest memories with the team?
Oh, so many. I guess I'll have to go back to the Christmas tree. The ultimate story.
You have to tell that story from the beginning.
Well, yeah, at Christmas time, Mark Johnson and Robbie McClanahan bought a Christmas tree and put it in their room in Lake Placid. It was the pre-Olympic tournament, and somebody stole the Christmas tree and took it out of their room and threw it out in the middle of Mirror Lake. And that was like amazing how somebody could steal the tree and then throw it out in the middle of Mirror Lake. So Magic and Robbie were really pissed off that, who stole the tree and who stole it, but who threw it in the middle of Mirror Lake.
Was it you?
Wasn't me.
And to this day, 40 years later.
40 years later, nobody's come forward and said who stole the tree. I think it was Davy Christian. I think most of my teammates will think it's Davy Christian, but we had an like Inspector Clouseau. I was Inspector Clouseau with John Harrington and Dave Silk, and we asked and put all the clues on the board to see who stole the tree. And to this day, nobody's come forward and said who stole the Christmas tree. So I think that might be the best one, but there were a lot of funny things. When you get a team of guys 18, 19 years old, there's a lot of fun going on. So that would be my biggest one.
Brian, Hilton Head, South Carolina. After the Olympics, why didn't you continue your hockey career?
I just felt it was time to move on and do something else. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I had some offers from the New York Rangers, the Buffalo Sabres, the Minnesota North Stars, the Hartford Whalers, and at 25, I just thought, it doesn't get any better than this. There's no doubt in my mind I could have played. I wouldn't have been a star. I would have been probably an average NHL player, probably played 3 or 4 years at best. I like to think I would have been a good penalty killer, a good teammate, a good guy in the locker room, a good guy in the community. But, kind of looked around and thought, let's just move on and do something else. I didn't know what I was going to do at that point. But, it's not like today, nobody said, here's $100 million. Yeah, I think I'll play. Peace of mind was important for me. And, I sat down with Bob Murray, who's my advisor, and I said, Bob, you know what? Let's just end it right here, and let's go out with a gold medal, and let's see what happens with my life and what I'm going to do from here.
James from Powell, Ohio. This is a reference to your minor league hockey career. You played 2 years for the Toledo Gold Diggers. He asks, do you ever come back to Toledo?
You know, I've been back to Toledo a few times since 1980, probably 4 or 5 times. I love going back to Toledo. Toledo is an important part of my life, not only as a hockey player, but as a person. The people I met there, players that I played with, friends that I've met over the years. It was kind of a second home for me. You know, you're coming from Boston University to Toledo Gold Diggers was pretty drastic change. But yet the people of Toledo have embraced me and have always been very nice and friendly to me. And I'm hoping to go back possibly in March to do maybe a book signing at a Walleye game.
Christine, Brooklyn, New York, says, my sons have played in Lake Placid, and we get chills walking into the arena and the locker rooms. Have you been back to Lake Placid, and are you as speechless as we are?
I've been so fortunate to go back to Lake Placid. I get back to Lake Placid quite a bit over the last 40 years. Very rarely do I go a year without getting back to Lake Placid. I've actually been back there with my kids. My son played in a tournament there, and it was fun because he played against Jack O'Callahan's son. I think they were both 9 or 10 at the time, and it was fun to do that. I go back for our fantasy camp every year that we have. I'll look forward to going back again this year. And once in a while I'll get back there for a speaking engagement. But it's a special place. I call it Pleasantville because it's never changed. It's just a great little place. The people there are so kind and generous and generous rather, and just nice people there that just they somewhat keep our Olympic spirit alive. With the arena the way it is, and you know, we're hoping to someday get a statue. They're working on it, raising money to build a statue of our team and putting it out front of the arena. That's early stages right now.
Okay, well, that'd be quite an event.
Yeah.
Adam, Livonia, Michigan. I'm from Michigan. I live in Ann Arbor, not far from Livonia. Adam from Livonia, Michigan asks, have you ever spoken to one of the Soviet players? And if so, who and what was said? And maybe it was Kasatonov?
Yeah, I've never talked to any of the Soviet players personally, like other than a phone call I had with Alexei Kasatonov that talked about the 80 team playing the Soviets again in exhibition games.
So he called you and asked?
He called and wanted to know, you know, what Soviet 80 team play U.S. 80 team in 5 exhibition games, and we all can make money. And I was like, look, I don't play anymore. And really none of my teammates play except, you know, a few of the guys. And this was probably, I want to say maybe 20 years ago. And I called them back and I said, look, we don't play hockey anymore, but we love to play golf. If you want to do a 5-city golf event, we'd love to do that, and we can make money and for charity. And there's a pause, and I hear back, we don't play golf. So that was my only conversation with the Soviet players. I did meet Mishkin one day here in New York City at Rockefeller Center. There was a fundraising event regarding the upcoming Olympic Games, and he was there. But I didn't really talk with him that much. I just kind of shook his hand and said hello and moved on. But I think some of my teammates over the years have talked, because the Fetisov and Larionov and Makarov, Krutov, I think Mike Ramsey and Davey Christian, they either played with them or against them. But they told me that they never really talked about the game.
Philip, Hendersonville, Tennessee. This is interesting and something about you I didn't even know. As a kid growing up in Nashville, before the Predators, we had the Nashville Knights. I know you were a part owner. What was it like to own a minor league hockey franchise?
That's funny. I was a part owner of the Nashville Knights. I had a little piece of the team, but it was for a very brief period of time. The other guy who owned the team, I think, ended up selling the team. And I went down there just a couple of times to watch the Nashville Knights play. I love their uniforms were awesome. I still think I have the jersey at home. So yeah, that's a great story, and that was a long time ago.
Andrew, Westfield, Indiana. After 40 years, what is the biggest takeaway from your experience?
I think the joy that we've brought to so many people that I've met, and my teammates have met as well over the years. People come up and have a great story to tell you, with a smile on their face, and remembering where they were, what they were doing, what the moment meant to them. So I think when you can bring a smile to so people's faces over an athletic achievement, one that touched clearly our lives, but as we've been able to find out over the years, touched other people's lives. I think that's been the greatest takeaway, to see the joy.
Ty, Augusta, Georgia, what is the most important skill a hockey player must have?
I think skating. They can go hand in hand. Skating and hands. It's great to have great hands, but it all goes hand in hand as far as a player goes. You got to be able to be a great skater, and once you're a great skater, you got to be able to see the ice. You got to know the game, your knowledge of the game, understand the game. There are a lot of players that I played with and against that had a tremendous ability, but didn't know the game, didn't understand how the game is played. So I think that's part of it as well. Is skating is important, but knowing the game, knowing how to play the game, knowing the nuances of the game, I think that's important.
Perry, Roseville, Minnesota. Thank you for everything you have given to hockey and the country. Your actions still speak to all of us all these years later. Not a question, but a very nice comment. Matt, Carlstadt, New Jersey. How accurate was the movie Miracle?
It was pretty close. It wasn't 100%. There's a little Hollywoodish here and there. Certain scenes were somewhat dramatized a little, but I think the movie got the gist of the story. We won. I've always told people that it's really the Herb Brooks story, and we're a part of it. None of that. My teammates and I were involved in the movie. I think they developed the movie from Herb, talking to Herb, listening to Herb, watching highlights, getting interviews, videotapes, and things like that. Researching the games itself. But Kurt Russell was brilliant. It was actually eerie watching him as Herb. He was so good. Although in the movie, I think he was a little friendlier than Herb. Herb was a little more intense. But again, I thought Hollywood did a good job of capturing what the moment was.
Donald, Columbus, Ohio. Hey, Mike, this will be used as a future raffle item for our annual First Responder Hockey Game in Columbus, Ohio. Not a question, but maybe you could comment. You actually have a first responder in your family, don't you?
Yes, my son just became a fireman, so we're excited for him. It's great. My son-in-law's a police officer, and now my son's a fireman. So we've covered both bases in the family of helping others. So congratulations on your event. I hope it goes well, and I don't play hockey anymore, but if you need an autograph item, just get it to me and I'll sign it.
Tom, Hudson Falls, New York. What was your favorite exhibition game leading up to the Olympics?
Favorite exhibition game? Oh, that's a great question. We had so much fun. I guess when we played in Holland, when we went over in the Netherlands and played, that was fun because I'd never been there before. So I'll say that trip.
All right. I've got a list of 22 questions in 2 minutes that we'll go to. This is kind of a lightning round. Okay. So, first, where were you born?
Winthrop, Massachusetts.
Who would you want to play you in a movie?
I was asked that question the other day. I'm going to say Matt Damon because he's from Boston.
All right. What was your first job?
A caddy.
What is your biggest fear?
Wow. Failure.
Who makes you laugh the most?
My grandkids.
What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Water.
Who is the most interesting person you met recently?
Well, I meet a lot of it. I would say President Trump, having played golf with him last year. So I guess he's interesting.
What is your middle name?
Anthony.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
People who are late.
What is the last book you read? Please say The Making of a Miracle.
Well, that is...
I guess that wouldn't count.
that is obvious, The Making of a Miracle. You know what? I'm not a big book reader. I would say the last book I read might have been The Greatest Generation, and then I read The Greatest Generation Speaks.
Okay. What is your favorite hobby?
Playing golf.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Probably Tito's and soda.
Do you have any hidden talents?
I can sing a little.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, I would say I can sing a little. I'm not saying I can sing, but I can carry a tune. I was in the choir in high school.
Okay. What color is your toothbrush?
The handle is blue.
Okay. What is your secret snack?
Try not to snack. So I'm going to say I actually it's kind of funny. I steal my grandkids' little ice creams that they have because the other day when I was I opened the fridge up in the bottom and there was a note from my 4-year-old grandson that I think my wife wrote that he signed. It said, "Papa, please leave our ice cream alone," and it was TJ's signature.
How do you take your coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
What is the last movie you saw in the theater?
This might sound crazy, but I don't go to the theaters. I usually wait for airplanes and hotels. But I think the last movie I went to in the theater was My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, really?
And I saw it not once, but I went back the next night with my friends and told them you guys gotta watch this movie. So that's how long ago I went to the movies.
What is the last gift you gave?
Well, it would be Christmas. So like presents to my kids, my wife. I got her a gift card at Macy's because she likes to shop at Macy's. So that would have been, I think that was the last gift she opened for Christmas.
What cause is dear to your heart?
I think my own charitable foundation that I try to give money and raise money for our community, for kids, families.
Foundation is called?
Winthrop Charities. So the money that I raise through Winthrop Charities goes to families, kids who can't play sports, families that have had health issues, kids that have cancer and need some fundraising events. We've had last year a family in our town had a fire in their home and they were displaced, so we gave some money to help them, hotel wise and food and stuff like that. Every Christmas through my foundation we buy Christmas presents for kids. Thanksgiving we buy turkeys and dinners for families that can't afford. So I guess in the broadened sense of it would be to help others.
Okay. What is number one on your bucket list?
I've got asked that question before. I don't have a bucket list. I don't expect to do something. The things I like to do and have fun. I don't think there's a big. This is what I need to do in my life. I've done so many. I've done so many incredible things. So.
Last of the 22 in 2 minutes. Where do you want to go that you've never been?
It would probably be Alaska, because I've said this throughout the last few days of me. Anyway, I've been to every state in the United States but Alaska, and yet I've been invited there a few times and haven't gotten back, haven't gone. So I think that might be the place that I would probably like to finally go visit. I mean, I love Hawaii. I've been there a bunch of times, but I think if I want to cover the whole basis to say that I visited every state, Alaska would be it.
Okay. Well, this is a reminder, premiercollectibles.com/miracle. Get your signed copies, signed by Mike Eruzione, hero of the 1980 Miracle on Ice Olympics. The Making of the Miracle is the book. HarperCollins published it. It's just released today by Mike Eruzione and his co-author. premiercollectibles.com/miracle. They're available now. You'll enjoy the book. Mike, it's been a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, pal. Thanks for putting this book together with me, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.